Hello again, I'm Melissa Dome. If you've not used the Menti.com presentations, I would encourage you to do so. You can use the QR code in the corner, or you can just go in, do Menti.com, and enter that code, and it'll bring you right into this presentation so that you can interact with me. If you're worried about it, let me just say you don't have to make an account or anything. You can go right into it. So you don't have to download anything, just to let you know. Okay, so this module we're going to be working on or talking about supervision theories and models. So we're focusing solely on being a clinical supervisor in this section. And so when you think about how someone that is responsible for another person becoming an independent clinical clinician, think about what qualities that person needs to have. And if you would put those up there, I'd love to see your thoughts. One of the things that is really important is when they started looking at models and theories to develop for clinical supervision, the realization was that just because you have an experienced clinician doesn't make them a great clinical supervisor. And it's not always easy to transfer that knowledge or that skill to a supervisee. And so all of the different theories that we currently use on your evidence-based theories, a lot of them just kind of came up with their own clinical supervision theory so that they could have one that was kind of like an extension of the theory itself. And so that's what gave us all these different wonderful ways to look through different case conceptualizations through a different lens, through different views. And then to be able to do that also as a clinical supervisor to integrate other thoughts. No matter what model or theory that you're based under, you're going to provide educational supervision. You're going to assess people's skills. You're going to evaluate what they need. You're going to figure out where they are in their knowledge base. You're going to do administrative tasks like how much, are they handling their caseload? They need some time management help. Um, are their treatment plans okay and up to what standards are? Do they need support? It doesn't matter if, as a clinical supervisor, it doesn't matter if the person has a complex case, has a case they're really struggling with, don't know what to do with the case, or they're just having some personal stuff that's kind of causing triggers into their session. We are that support system. As a clinical supervisor, you are a highly valued support system for a clinician in training. In different states, we'll say a resident in training, a supervisee, a trainee. You'll have to know what the terms are for the state that you live in or the state that you're licensed in. But basically what we're talking about is during clinicals, your last year of grad school, and then after post-graduation, when you are under clinical supervision for a couple of years, and then you become eligible to be a clinical supervisor. So this applies to you in multiple ways, and you need to know all the ins and outs of it because you also have to decide what kind of clinical supervisor you want and what kind of clinical supervisor, if you want to be one, what kind do you want to be and what do you need to learn to grow into that role. Ken Blanchard said the opportunity to guide others to their fullest potential is an honor and one that should not be taken lightly. As leaders, we hold the lives of others in your hands. These hands need to be gentle and caring and always available for support. I always like this quote because it makes you really think about it's not a boss-employee relationship. It is a therapist and a training therapist relationship, supervisor-supervisee relationship that has a lot of complex parts. And you'll see in all these different theories, different people decide to do different focuses and do it a little bit different. We're going to start off with the theory models, which are psychodynamic, feminist, cognitive behavioral, person-centered, systemic, and solution-focused. So again, all these theories decided to have their own set of clinical supervision theories as an extension of their own models. We're going to start with the psychodynamic model. The psychodynamic model has a couple of tiers, categories. The first one is focusing on the client, so the case conceptualization, what's going on with the client, looking at that holistically, and then what relationships did that client have and how they have those relationships, and then it kind of takes it up into the clinician's focus, being the focus, and the clinician's relationship with that client. What does that look like? What does that feel like? We're always looking in this modality for transference and countertransference, unprocessed, unconscious things. And then there's a third level, and that's what is the relationship between the supervisor and the supervisee. So it's constantly looking at all these relationships and how they reflect upon how they're being reflected upon. Okay. Some of these you'll notice in the PowerPoint slide that's in the module. You'll notice at the bottom of some of them they have links. And when I could find a good YouTube video showing you a piece of these models, I would provide the link. So if you want to check out more, you can go to those links. Next, we have the feminist theory. The feminist theory is very much focused on power and power imbalances. It works really hard in clinical supervision not to have a power imbalance and to be equal to each other. And power focuses a lot on advocacy and social justice, because the underlying aspects of this theory is basically that we are all, as humans, political, in the sense that we are the symptoms or the way that we're impacted are because of where we are and when we are, in the sense of what are we experiencing in the world around us, societal, cultural, close to home and far away. How does that impact how much anxiety we have, how we feel about ourselves? And so it really focuses on empowering people and acceptance and not having biases, but challenging those biases. And let's see. And of course, this is a theory where cultural competency is big. Always should be, but a focus. Focuses a lot on any type of power imbalance and oppression. And I think I covered all of it. Okay, so let's go to the next one. And then we have cognitive behavioral therapy. One of the things that's really different about this one is it's very structured. It has an agenda for like every single meeting. It's not uncommon to be assigned homework. That you might do a lot of skill building in sessions, like role playing or practicing skills to get skills down and have a really good skill of every technique that you're using. Okay. Person-centered. Person-centered is very much just like the theory that you're used to. The belief is that as a clinician, you have the power to become the clinician that you need to be, and the role of the clinical supervisor is to be a collaborator, not an authority figure, but a collaborator, and provide this environment to where you can process and have that professional growth. Rogers was also one of the first people, was the first person to actually have you transcribe sessions, which if you've done that before, you know is a really good way of seeing some of the things that you couldn't see another way. He always wanted people, and all of us, to work towards self-actualization. In a quote, he said, "I think my major goal is to help therapists to grow in self-confidence and to grow in the understanding of him or herself, and to grow in a therapeutic process. Supervision for me becomes a modified form of therapeutic interview." So Carl Rogers really was felt that the role of the clinical supervisor was a very important role, and how we helped clinicians develop was very important. The next one is systemic. One of the big differences here is it's going to focus, like how feminist theory focused a lot about external factors. Systemic will too. It'll be more about focus on family and relationships, couples. Um, it'll be used more in that, but there's always going to have this feel around it of all the connections that that person has connected to them, and those relationships and how that impacts them. And it doesn't look at a problem as an isolated issue. It looks at it as part of, like if you think of a web, right? It's part of this connectedness. Um, and so it's always looking for patterns within the system. Solution focused. It's brief, it's goal oriented. You have a reason that you're trying to solve something, you have a goal, this is what you do, it's achievable, and it's very strategic, and it's focused on one thing, because it's solution focused. So I took this chart and I provided you a little bit of visual view, because to help you with your discussion board, to write about these, to do the comparison stuff. I provided this for a quick overview of the things that we just went over, just to give you a chart, just to pull out the main points of each thing. So you can look at that. Okay, and so now it's self-quiz time. So what do you remember? What do you recall? What did you get out of it? So you've got 3 questions. Read these questions and then pick what theory that you think that one was talking about. There's 3 of them. Again, all you have to do is go to Mindy.com and put in the code, or you can use the QR code at the beginning, and you'll go right in here and you can put it in there. And it doesn't show your name or anything, it just gives me some information. And when people start putting answers in, you'll see other people's as well. But you won't see who posted what. It's all anonymous. Okay, and that's the 3rd question. So if you get those in there, that'll help you start differentiating these in your mind. And then we're going to go into the developmental models. The developmental models really talk about like the development of the clinician themselves and how they grow and change over time while they're in supervision. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the integrated IDM and the Stoltenberg. So it's basically one model that kind of had some more information added to it. And so when you think about this model, one of the things that, just quick fact, it's one of the most researched developmental models, so it's very popular. It has you put into like a category of beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And when you think about like a chart, that is the different things that the supervisor does will be tweaked depending on what level you are as a clinician in that response or support. It focuses on getting you able to be an independent licensed clinician, because they want you to practice autonomy. One of the things that they talk a lot about in this model is how you should understand the level that your supervisees under. Like a person in level 1 is going to be, a beginner is going to be very much a very high anxious person, but they're also going to be highly motivated. So you think about somebody coming in that beginner phase, they're very anxious, but they're also very motivated to change the world. And then they talk about how in level 2, in the intermediate, how that kind of changes to where a person is sometimes motivated, but sometimes not, because you're really getting into the grunge of everything, and the world starts, the stories of the client sometimes can weigh on you if you don't take care of yourself. So that motivation can change. And in this phase, you'll also notice that a lot of the motivation fully depends upon how successful the clients that you're working with are. And so that's really something that a supervisor needs to notice, that some of the person may be um, losing motivation, maybe because they don't feel like they're having any success with their clients. And then as you grow and you become more of an advanced clinician, one of the things that will stabilize is that motivation. You'll be able to be consistent. You'll understand your own therapeutic self as an intervention. And you'll also understand that as you become more experienced, you realize that the success is not yours, that is the client is the hero, right? The client is the person that becomes the one that did all the work. And that's a really important focus for a supervisor. Um, okay. The other focuses on this is, I think it was in the last one, we've talked about autonomy, self and other awareness, motivation, um, assessing how well your clinician can make decisions without you. What is their self-confidence level in making those decisions? Um, how are they with fears, trying something new, getting more difficult or more complex clients? And what is their level of motivation to help others, but also, a big one, is to learn and get outside of their comfort zone. That's a big thing too. So these are just some continuation things of how the integrated model assesses clinicians to respond appropriately. And I think I kind of already went over the levels. Um, it's still worth noting, though, on some of these, I hit a lot of this point, but I'll hit the stuff I didn't already. How sometimes you have to be really careful when you're a new clinician, that in level 1, you can respond too much as an expert because you feel maybe that you know a lot, and that's not maybe the best response. Um, level 2, where someone's starting to get comfortable, that is actually when they may show more confusion and conflict because they're starting to process all of this stuff now, and they're having to put those puzzle pieces together for themselves. So that's normal and it's expected. I think that's an important point there. Um, level 3, the favorite part of this one to me is you can be honest in a self-appraisal. Like you can honestly look at yourself and be okay with knowing your strengths and your own weaknesses. I think that's very important here. Okay. And then we go to the integrative supervision models. And integrative means exactly what it sounds like. It's really talking about how um, you can use and pull from all the theories and the models to make something fit specifically what you're trying to do. Um, People like it because it's flexible, and you can get the best parts of what you like on all the other different, 2 or 3 different models or theories, and put that information together. Discrimination model. Um, it also has a tailored response, and the reason they call it discrimination model is you have to discriminate how you respond depending on what level your supervisee's in. And although the IDM model is the most researched and very popular, Bernard's discrimination model is actually the most commonly used. So um, the points on it is that, like many of the developmental models, it puts the clinician into a specific category, but instead of the clinician, it puts the supervisor. So the supervisor has to decide, are they going to be in a teacher role, a counselor role, or a consultant role? So which one of these roles am I going to act with this specific problem right now. And the supervisor will make that decision based specifically on how that they feel the clinician's intervention skills are, how does that person conceptualize the case, and also the personalization of the case. So you can kind of mix and match and respond in different ways depending on how the clinician's doing their level, and then what role you need to respond in. Uh, the other part of this theory, it talks a whole lot about how important it is not to always respond in teacher or counselor or consultant, to really make sure that as this clinical supervisor that you don't get stuck in providing just one of these roles just because you're comfortable, to also make sure that you pay attention and watch that for yourself as well. And again, this is one that has a video with it. This one also is very flexible. It's role-based approach. I think that it says, why is it favored? And I think a lot of it has to do with it has a structure, but it also allows flexibility, and it allows you to adapt to the moment. So it's not a rigid framework, but it does give you a very solid framework. So when you think about all the ones that we've went through, which ones do you think that you connect with most? And why did that feel like something you could connect with? What did it mean to you? So I'd like to see that. And then here at the end, I just wanted to put in like some of the things that no matter what model, we're still going to have to instill ethics and have expectations, be a support, be that clinician's cheerleader in their corner, and share with them our own experiences so that it allows them to feel comfortable in growing with us along this journey. It's a hard job to be a clinical supervisor, but it's an extremely rewarding role, and I've always liked being a clinical supervisor and getting to hear different stories and watch people develop over time. So it's a really unique position. I think this is right at the last slide. If you wouldn't mind, I would like to know what you all think for the next time that I teach this class. I could change some of these things. So I would really like to know, what did you prefer? You've had the regular lectures in this course, and then you have the Menti, which is the interactive. Do you like the traditional or do you like the interactive? So if you have any feedback, I would love to hear it. And then if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And you can post them on here, or you can contact me through text or email. You have my information. And I appreciate you guys for hanging in there with me, and I hope you enjoyed it.